你就讲完那8个字，然后导播我们就结束，我们就什么也都不要聊了，然后你随时可以开始。头先低下来。
光复香港，时代革命。
Hong Kong is in the midst of protest against an oppressive Chinese government. The protest started as a demonstration against the Fugitive Offenders Amendment Bill, which would allow for people to be extradited to certain countries with which Hong Kong does not have an extradition agreement, chiefly Taiwan and mainland China, to face trial in those countries. People were worried that the level of autonomy that Hong Kong enjoys from the Chinese government would be under threat with this extradition bill. And while the bill was eventually withdrawn, the protests have continued. Protesters want to make sure that the extradition bill never comes back. They want their protest to stop being classified as a riot. They want any protesters that were arrested to be released and exonerated. They want an independent commission to look into allegations of police brutality during these protests, and they want Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam, to resign. Protesters in Hong Kong are right to be concerned about China's influence. Beijing has been accused of attacking Hong Kong's freedoms, in particular, the freedom to express oneself or participate in political activities. In particular, the Hong Kong and Chinese government like to harass people who engage in political activities. They harass or detain journalists for speaking out against human rights abuses. It's a corrupt and oppressive government, but it controls a market that makes an incredible amount of money for the entertainment sector across the world. So there are many corporations out there that produce movies, video games, television that will tell you they're all about democracy, they're all about freedom of expression, and they absolutely hate those human rights abuses, but they will bend over backwards to slurp the arsehole of the Chinese government because they're terrified of losing out on billions of dollars. Hello, Activision Blizzard. Didn't see you there. Now that you've had a brief potted recap of what's going on, let's get on to the story. A Hearthstone player is having their prize money stolen, and they've been banned from Hearthstone eSports for a year because they showed solidarity with the protesters. In addition to that, 2 broadcasters have been punished as well for the searing crime of being a bit near the situation when it happened. Professional Hearthstone player Blitzchung from Hong Kong ended a stream by donning a mask similar to the Hong Kong protesters and said, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age." As a result of that, Activision Blizzard has removed Blitzchung from the Grandmasters, is withholding prize money he's otherwise owed, and will not be welcomed back in Hearthstone eSports until October 5th, 2020. The 2 casters who were broadcasting with him at the time physically ducked during the comments and quickly cut to commercial, clearly aware of repercussions, and despite this, Blizzard said that they will immediately cease working with them. Blizzard said, somewhat erroneously, "While we stand by one's right to express individual thoughts and opinions, players and other participants that elect to participate in our esports competitions must abide by the official competition rules." I say that's erroneous because in this case Blizzard literally did not stand by anyone's right to express individual thoughts and opinions. Blizzard is claiming its rules were violated, citing this section of its guidelines. "Engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard's image, will result in removal from Grandmasters and reduction of the player's prize total to $0 USD in addition to other remedies, which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms." Now that's a handy little rule for Blizzard to hide behind, because it is pretty vaguely written. It looks like it's not, but when you actually look at it, all the ruling says is that Blizzard gets to decide whether you were bad or not, whether you did a naughty. It's at Blizzard's sole discretion that what you said brought you into public disrepute or offended people. And in the wake of this, there have been some arguments over whether or not Activision Blizzard's decision was understandable given the financial power of the Chinese market and the fear corporations have of offending it. And I don't know if this'll surprise anyone, but myself personally, I don't have any sympathy for a multi-billion-dollar corporation that makes billions of dollars missing out on some billions of dollars. If the choice is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that already makes billions of dollars missing out on a few billions of dollars, or siding with an oppressive government that violates human rights, I'm thinking that maybe Bobby Kotick could do without another gold-plated dog. Unfortunately, we live in a world where shareholders demand more and more money every single year, and publishers have to serve those, I was going to say needs, those lustful, decadent desires, and things like respect for human freedom, common decency, a desire to not side with oppressive regimes, well, that can't get in the way of money. People in games communities love to talk about censorship and free speech, and here we see a very demonstrable example of free speech being infringed upon. This is Activision Blizzard capitulating to an oppressive government regime. And unfortunately, this is not an issue that's gonna get better. The sheer amount of money that the Chinese market brings to the table is overwhelming. There's a reason why so many mainstream movies go out of their way to appeal to the Chinese market. But that appeal, that money that's there, that gives the Chinese government a huge amount of leverage, and it makes companies terrified of offending them. And it just so happens that giving a shit about the human rights abuses that go on in China offends the Chinese government. So essentially, companies like Activision Blizzard take the side of oppressive regimes, take the side of human rights abuses, whether on paper they agree with what goes on in that country or not. The ultimate result of their capitulation and their silence and their appearance of neutrality is implicit approval that's been bought and paid for. So anyway, that's what Activision Blizzard's been up to.